John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Series testing, successful hunting. I've got a really cool broadhead to test today. It's a brand new one. It's called the Kanaka, and this is their 167 grain gray ghost model. Really intriguing design. So in just a minute, we're going to zoom on in here and go through some of the design features and specifications, and then we're going to put it to the test using my 2023 protocol. And if you want to understand why I do this test and how I do it, all the behind the scenes, rather than me explain it in every video, I made a video explaining the 2023 broadhead test process. So you can check out that video, then you'll be up to speed and you'll follow along a little bit better. Or you can read about it in the description right below this video. I go through and report all the scores and measurements and so forth. But for the test, I'm using my Bowtech CP28s at 72 pounds, and I'm using Bishop FOC King arrows, about 440, 460, or sometimes above that based on the weight of the broadhead. And then I'm using Bishop FAD eliminators for the really hard impact shots because they can handle it. All right, now let's zoom on in here and check out this Kanaka Gray Ghost. Okay, here's a good look at this head, and this is one wicked looking broadhead here. I really like the looks of it. You might think it's pretty simple and straightforward, but when you get into it, you realize it's not simple at all. So first, the materials. It's made out of a single piece of 440C stainless steel, and in this model, it's brought to a Rockwell hardness of 54. Now, the dimensions are the main blade has a cutting diameter of 1 inch, and then this secondary blade has a cutting diameter, by my measurements, of 0.5 inches. So a total cut of 1.5 inches. But then in addition to that, the blades are really thick, okay? They're 0.060 inches thick, the main blade. So a really nice thickness to them. And then this one's even thicker than that, but it's hard to measure it because it's just gradual like that. But I imagine the cutting diameter, okay, that's kind of small, but it does have this extra blade, and then it has 0.060 inch thick blades, so I imagine that's going to make a wound channel that's pretty difficult to close up. But then in addition to that, it's what they call a double single bevel, meaning that it has 4 blades, and all of them are true single bevel blades. And, you know, you go, well, there's other broadheads that have bleeders that are also single bevel. Yes, but not that are one-piece construction. At least to my knowledge, these are the only heads that are a single-piece construction and have 4 single bevel blades. That's really interesting. That's just going to produce a lot more rotation, I would imagine, especially in an animal, and it's going to make a wound channel that, along with the thickness and that cutting diameter this way, is going to be really difficult to close up. So I love that about the design. Now with this 167 grain model, something that's interesting is if you look from the back, this blade is going to look, the main blade, is going to look like it's double bevel. But then you look from the front and you go, nope, it's single bevel. And what they've done is they've kind of cut out the back of it. Okay, it's hard to explain. It doesn't make sense in some ways, but they've cut out the back of it just to shave the weight. See, what they wanted to do is they wanted to keep the blade thickness at 0.060 inches. They didn't want to go below that. So they figured out a way to shave some weight while keeping the blades that thickness and still having this cut this way. And the way they did it was to cut out the back of the single bevel. So again, it looks like double bevel from here, but you look from the front and you go, no, it's actually single bevel. Now that makes the blade a bit thinner at the edge, and I would imagine it's going to get a bit more edge chatter in a really hard impact. But might not be an issue in animals, and everything's a trade-off. It's probably going to make it really sharp as well, and these blades do feel really sharp. Then they've got a Tanto tip here that is just going to improve the durability, make it a little more difficult to roll over. And then another unique thing is you'll notice it doesn't have a classic ferrule. There's not like a round cylinder in the middle with the blades coming off of it. And the reason they did that is that lip of those ferrules and the gradual like increasing thickness has to be forced through an animal, through a medium, whereas this is pure cut. So there's no round ferrule to it. There's just blade, even though it's one piece. That's going to aid in penetration, I would imagine. And then also with the blade in this smaller direction here, it goes up really far. That's going to aid in durability. So the ferrule is actually ferrule, quote unquote, is actually really thick. Okay, it's thicker than a typical ferrule would be, but it's going to be cutting instead of just forcing through an animal. So again, it's going to produce a better blood trail and open up a hole for the shaft to be able to go through. So really interesting design features to this. And I want to note too that the beveling is 31.5 degrees in this model. Now in the 250 grain, I believe the beveling is 30 degrees. As they get heavier, the bevel angle gets more stout, okay, to give a little extra durability to that edge. And they go up to 35 degrees and even 40 degrees with their heavier heads. And they have heads that go up I forget what the most is. I think like 650 grains or something like that. Okay, it's a cool looking broadhead. I'd like to test that at some point. And as for sharpening, you know, with the four edges, and especially the smaller one, you know, you might think, oh, that's going to be really difficult to sharpen. And I think that a little bit too. It's going to be more challenging than a component head where you can take the blades off. However, because it's single bevel on each of the blades, that's going to make it a lot easier. The Stay Sharp Guide C kit works really well with these. So I don't think it'll be that challenging unless there's a lot of edge chatter, and then it would be much more difficult to be able to get that chatter out. But really intriguing design, a lot of features I like about it. Eager to test it out and see how it performs. Yep. It took 175 grams of force to cut through the wire, which is a 10 on a 10-point scale. It penetrated 7.5 inches. It took an extra 25 grams of pressure to cut through the wire, which equates to a 9.5 on a 10-point scale. It penetrated through 62 layers. It rotated 50 degrees at 10 inches. The head is in perfect condition after 3 shots through the MDF. Here it is after going through the steel plate 2 times, and as you can see, the head held together very well structurally, but the edges experienced quite a bit of chatter. They got pretty beat up there, and it benefited from the holes being really close to each other and kind of overlapping. Now you can see that hole there of both the shots and see a classic S cut from that single bevel, which is impressive. So here it is after all the durability tests, the MDF, the steel plate, and then into the concrete. And as I pointed out with the steel plate, it experienced quite a bit of edge chatter there that's not uncommon for a single bevel head, especially that's made out of a stainless steel like this. There's so much pressure on that leading edge. And then you see into the concrete, it got a bit more of a chunk taken out there of kind of the bleeder portion, if you will. But it overall, structurally, held together very well into the concrete. I mean, it still spins very true. So what did you think of the Gray Ghost? Man, I tell you, this head did really well, okay? It's really intriguing. Kind of every area it did well. The only concern was the edge chatter that it got in the steel plate. But then again, that is steel plate. But that gradual bevel that they have, and then especially in the 167 grain where they've cut out the back a little bit, it gets pretty thin. Of course, that makes it extra sharp, and everything's a trade-off in broadhead design. And that chatter is probably not going to be much of an issue in animals. So I think they're really onto something here. You check out the score sheet and see how it performed in the areas that matter to you the most, and see if it might be a good fit for you. But I say great job, Kanaka. Keep up the great work. I look forward to testing more of your stuff in the future.